There's a scene where I walk really close to Shah Rukh in Pathan and I look at him and I say, "To kya karoge?" You know, I'm threatening him.
Yeah.
Some meme I saw, "Bhige hoot tere," and I'm looking at it and it looked like true romance, you know, between Shah Rukh and me.
Yeah.
And I was like, these meme guys have some imagination.
I just find you so endearing in your comedy films, you know, and you're always playing like really tough guys in some of the films. And at the same time, whenever you were doing your comedies, you used to become this innocent puppy of a guy.
Yeah. I think in real life, I'm an innocent puppy kind of a guy.
Yeah.
See, everybody's laughing behind camera. but yeah, Boss Garam Masala for me is epic.
Yeah.
I love that space. So would I do a part 2? Yeah, totally I would do a part 2. I hope we can surprise you with something soon.
Really?
Maybe, I don't know.
Fingers
Maybe.
crossed. You heard it here first. If you just, had to talk about some war documentaries that you really like.
So I'll tell you what I actually watch. So I watch a lot of debates, a lot of, there's a channel called Vice. So I watch a lot of stuff on Vice. Documentaries, of course, I see a lot of documentaries and just general stuff of, the last documentary I saw was on, and I don't know exactly what the documentary was called, but it was on Jerusalem. Because if you see, Jerusalem is the epicenter of all the wars that are happening. Yeah. You know, that one little place, and there's East and West Jerusalem and what happens there. It was stunning when I started reading about it. And, you know, then I went to the near future and near past, and then I read about the Abraham Accord, the Balfour Accord, all the accords and the different wars that were fought in that area. Learned then about, because my father's a Syrian Christian.
Oh.
So my great-grandfathers came technically from there.
Right.
And my mother's, my grandfather from my mother's side came from Iran.
Right, yes.
So he set sail from the shores of Iran, you know, Yazd and Shiraz, there are places there. And he landed on the shores of Bombay in 1939. So if you see both my sides, and probably that's why, because my mom, growing up, I could only hear her speak Farsi. You know, so when they used to speak to people, and they didn't want anybody else to know. You know how it happens. So if your parents spoke, they'd speak in Marwadi or they speak in some language that nobody else could hear. So in my family, from my mother's side, they would speak in Farsi, so no one would understand what is going on. So I used to pick up a little here there, which is why my next film, Tehran,
yes,
I've spoken in Farsi in the film.
Really?
And it came easily to me. I had to, of course, go through a lot of coaching.
Yeah.
To get the nuances right and the grammar correct. But I've spoken in Farsi because it's a film called Tehran, right? In Tehran, you're not going to speak in Hindi.
Of course.
You know? Because the Israelis were involved, I also spoke in Hebrew. So we had to make a very ubiquitous film, like a film that would kind of just cater to everybody, but an Indian audience like Harshit, if you see it, you should be like, freaking, these guys are brave, man. They've actually spoken in the language that's meant to be spoken in. Because हर चीज़ हम लोग हिंदी में ही डब करते हैं. जब भी हमें डब करना होता है, takes away a bit from the authenticity of the film. So anyway, coming back to this, because my ancestors come from two different parts of the Middle East.
Yeah.
You know, it made my journey of understanding where they came from very interesting. Probably that's one of the reasons why I have an opinion. And my opinion is not necessarily right or well informed all the time. But I have an opinion on everything. You know, when I say opinion means I'm not opinionated. कि नहीं जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ ये सही है यार, ये इसने ऐसे करा उसने वैसे करा. I'm not that way. But I have an opinion because I've read, I've seen. You know, I've read everything on Karl Marx, you know, for example. And I've read everything on Sigmund Freud also, philosophy. And I've read everything on Kafka, which is why I did No Smoking.
Really?
You know, and I'm a big fan of Kafka. So Kafka is all about alternate reality.
Yeah.
So what is No Smoking? No Smoking is a film where a guy has to give up smoking. And his wife tells him, give up, others I'll leave you. And he goes to a rehab run by Baba Bengali, who's Paresh Rawal's character. And then you realize he goes crazy and he's put in a gas chamber. And in that gas chamber, he looks at himself on the other side and he goes and touches himself. And the camera goes to the other side. And you realize that you are watching the film from his alter ego and not his real self. But the problem is you don't know when you switched. So a lot of people, when they come out of the hall, they're like, either they're very upset that, you know, they didn't understand, or they would go back in and watch it again, or they'd be put off and say, we don't want to see this kind of a film.
Yeah.
You know, so
And that's what happened with No Smoking at that time, unfortunately.
no one really saw the film, but one of the few films I'm very proud of.
Yeah.
Yeah, very proud of that film.
How do you look back on it now?
Oh, thank God I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank God I did it, and that's what I keep telling Anurag, that let's do a part 2, yeah. And you know, everybody makes part 2s out of hit films. Let's make it out of a film that only Anurag and me saw.
नहीं now यार, what are you talking about? Now तो so many people have seen No Smoking. आप Instagram पे जाओगे, आप John Abraham film search करोगे, सबसे पहले No Smoking आएगी.
Yeah, that is a great film. Great film. And even performance-wise, the way the director handled me in that film, gave me space, you know, blocked a frame and said, what would you do in this space? So every director's got a different approach. So even the Diplomat, for example, I think, I thought I had that paradigm shift a long time ago, but with the Diplomat, a lot of people are now seeing that quantum leap and a new John Abraham where they're saying like, this is very nuanced. And I know that my performance in a lot of places is very nuanced. When I'm sitting in front of Uzma, looking at her, when I'm saying, you know, character se diplomat ho, patience. You know, like, patience se diplomat ho, character se nahi. Whatever. There's a look that I give her, the interrogation, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, when I listen to it. You know, everything is very nuanced and you don't want to lose those nuances, and that I give credit to Shivam, my director, because we sat, and I also give credit to Saurabh Sachdev because I did my workshops with him. So we went deep into the character so that even your silences should speak. So even on Google, if you type, and I'm not saying I'm a good or a bad actor, but I'm saying when you type what good acting is, the first thing that comes up, it's about being realistic. You know, and about being as close to your character as possible. And that's what we try to attempt.
It's quite evident. And when you are playing a character that's based on a real person, how does the approach change for you?
You have to meet the real person first. If you're being true to your character, you have to try and understand how he speaks, how he approaches a question. Because JP Singh was that kind of a character. अगर आप उसे एक pointed सवाल पूछो ना, he would search you and he would smile कि क्यों पूछा है, you know. But he'd be very smart with his answer. So I think understanding how JP Singh approached a problem was very important for me. His general body language, because physically we look very different, but how to get as close to the character as possible. And then also listening to my director, because my director has a certain vision. I'm a director's actor. So my director tells me, this is what you need to do. I may have a constructive conversation with him till we arrive at a solution and say, "Theek hai, I'll do it like this." So listening to my director and understanding the character.
But how do the dynamics change when you're also involved as a producer?
Yeah. So as a producer, first of all, I would pick up something that I believe is very sensible. As an actor, I've gone completely wrong in many a time. I mean, I've done films that have gone horribly wrong, where the audience judges the film and then judges you also. Kyun kara yaar isne? Why did he do this? He didn't need to do this. My dad, for example, when he saw one of my films, and out of respect, I wouldn't mention the film.
Sure.
He said, "Son, don't do a film like this. It'll erode your equity." And that मुझे चुभा यार, लगा मुझे कि यार, you know, because my dad loves good cinema. So you kind of learn from that. Does that mean I may select a film that's always good? No. I could make mistakes. But the idea is to do good stuff and to... So as a producer, I only look at Vicky Donor, Madras Cafe, Parmanu, Batla House, Diplomat. I did a Marathi film called Savita Damodar Paranspe. I did a film called Attack, which I'm very proud of. I loved Attack. Didn't resonate with an audience, but I loved it. I did a Malayalam film called Mike. Great story. Didn't work 100%. I get it, no problem. But the idea is to tell good stories. So I think the Diplomat has only cemented the fact that if you're going to watch a John Abraham J entertainment film, आपको कुछ अलग मिलेगा, कुछ different मिलेगा आपको. And that's what I want to stand for.
How do you look back on Vicky Donor? I'm glad that you mentioned it. But that was your first film as a producer, right?
Correct.
And it was such a different film at that time. And I personally believe that in the past 2-3 decades, Hindi cinema is pre-Vicky Donor and post-Vicky Donor.
Totally.
Because it completely changed the way that films were being made, the kind of stories that were being given priority in terms of like Delhi and smaller towns. and the kind of problems, of course, the sexual, that whole thing became a genre in
huge,
itself.
Yeah.
So how do you look back on it now, and you almost kind of started a legacy in that way?
I mean, all credit to Shujit Sarkar. We can't have this conversation without giving credit where it's due. So Shujit, totally responsible for a beautiful film like that, and Juhi Chaturvedi wrote it. The writer, see, again, director and writer, two of your most important people. I was just lucky that Shujit and I were discussing Madras Cafe because I'd seen Yahan and I loved it. And I wanted to make a film on our late Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi's assassination. And luckily for me, Shujit had a script like that. So whilst we were developing that, Vicky Donor happened, and we went from one draft, two drafts, and Shujit will probably be a better narrator of this story than I am. And we finally decided to do it, and we got a young boy who I feel was beyond talented, called Ayushmann Khurrana, and we made that film happen.
Wow.
Again, that studio at that point of time didn't have faith in Ayushmann. So I still remember there were times when I roamed around with Ayushmann's poster saying, this boy is fantastic.
Really?
Yeah. So you always have a battle to kind of fight at that point. But then,
John, what does cinema mean to you?
I'll tell you what cinema meant to me when I started, because what impacted me, it was Schindler's List. So when I saw Schindler's List, I was blown. I was like, my God. Because it affected me for like 4-5 days after I saw the film. And I said, if I make films as a producer, if I do films as an actor, or both, it should be in this space, which is pretty clear. It's reflective of what I'm doing. But I also saw Rocky IV. And I saw Stallone and I said, man, a hero should look like this, man. This is the way. It's not about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you get hit and keep standing up. I said, that's a hero. That's a hero. So I think both these diametrically opposite films shaped my choices as a producer and an actor.
Is it easy to maintain that, that the thought with which you started, the fact that you were inspired by Schindler's List and Rocky IV at that time, but you are still continuing to do cinema like that? How easy or difficult is it to, maintain that?
See, look at the kind of films I've done. I've done a No Smoking, I've done a Garam Masala, I've done a Force.
Yeah.
And I've done a Madras Cafe. Now, in the space of Madras Cafe, I've done the Batla houses and the Parmanus and the Diplomats of the world. In the space of Force, I've done the Shootout at Vadalas and Rocky Handsoms and Attacks of the world. In the space of Garam Masalas, I've done the Desi Boys and the Houseful Twos and whatever of the world. In the space of No Smoking, I've done a Water, which went for the Academy Awards. And so I've always attempted something that's different, and I made sure that my filmography, successful or unsuccessful, should be varied. And as an actor and as a producer, it's important to make all kinds of films. That's very important. You may find your strength in, like my strong point is geopolitics. So I may find my strength in a Madras Cafe or a Diplomat. But I would do all kinds of cinema because I enjoy comedy a lot. Boss, Garam Masala for me is epic. I love that space. So would I do a part 2? Yeah, totally I would do a part 2. So these are things that we would want to do. So it has shaped my career. It has shaped my choices. And I'm happy with the pluses that I have. But I'm also very happy about the drastic mistakes that I've made. I've done some not so good films, and obviously I take the onus on myself. You can't blame a director for that. Finally, the actor chooses what he wants to do, because it's very easy for us to pass the buck on to a studio or a director or whatever. But I made those choices and I learned from those choices.
I'm so glad that you mentioned your comedy films, because I just find you so endearing in your comedy films, and you're always, your character is always has this innocence, be it Garam Masala. And at that time, you were doing films like Dhoom also. And, you were playing like really tough guys in some of the films. And at the same time, whenever you were doing your comedies, you used to become this innocent puppy of a guy.
Yeah.
How I would really love to know just how you kind of go from one to another.
I think in real life, I'm an innocent puppy kind of a guy. I want to believe that. But I think, see, everybody's laughing behind camera. but yeah, I think in real life, if you meet me and you catch me off guard, I am very Garam Masala. Not the girl part of it, but I'm saying I'm very fun. I was going to say Desi boys also. You say I'm a stripper.
In general, a lot of people on this set would agree that you are like Garam Masala.
But you know, for me, doing a villainous character is cool. I find normal very boring.
Yeah.
When I play a villain, like in Pathan, when I played Jim, or in Dhoom, when I played Kabir, I find that really cool. For me, that gives me that little bit of extra spark that I want in my life.
Yeah. And your villains have also been very interesting. Just, you know, they have had like a tinge of charm in them, but at the same time, they have been extremely intimidating. I mean, you know, as a kid, I used to be scared of your character in Dhoom.
Yeah.
Not even kidding.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he was so charming. You know, I remember so many people used to have your pictures on their wallpapers at that time. Jo us time wo keypad wale phones hote the. But yeah, like, you know, you kind of created your own
niche,
in terms of even how the villains would look. And
yeah, I just thought, you know, villains are played differently first, and I think villains need to be cool. And I thought with Dhoom, it was a starting again where we made villains cool.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
And then it was about the villain. Dhoom 2 and Dhoom 3, it was about the villain. Yeah. So I think we just made villains cool. Even Manya Surve in Shootout at Badala, he's a villain. He was a gangster, man. He was nothing short of a gangster. But that's where the Stallone kicked in, where he says, you know, and he runs, you know. That's, people like to see that space also. They want to see, when you meet me, Harshit, when you meet me personally, what happens is, when I've heard this comment from a lot of people, that when they meet their heroes in real life, they say, yaar, screen pe to itna bada ye, real life mein to wo tha hi nahi wo. So you want to see your hero big and strong. That's the old school way of thinking. You know, we want our heroes to be tough. They need to carry people. Like how I carried a motorcycle and force. They like that. Boys like that. So I think you have to cater to all different audiences. And with Garam Masala or Desi Boys, you cater to a completely different. You want to cater to a super, you know, you want to cater to that audience and make them fall in love with you. So it's about how you mold yourself for every film.
In Diplomat, probably, you know, in a long time, you have really, you know, committed to it in a way where, just like you were talking about Batla House or all of those films where you did include action in it, and you did include, I mean, you know, of course the script is there and all of that, but were you still compelled at any point to also take this film in that direction?
Oh, never. Very good question. Never. And that I give credit to my director. Because I remember he gave me shirts that came up till here that you couldn't see anything except in one scene in the climax where I take off my coat and I sit on the other side of the car.
Right.
Where people must say, abhi wo ye marega, abhi kuch hoga. But we never deviated from the character. We were true to the character. And I think that's why I say there's a new John Abraham that people see in The Diplomat, where they say, man, you should be doing stuff like this now. And I'm grateful to my director, and I'm grateful to myself for having the sense not to move away from or bow down to the diktats of commercialdom. Gaana dal do yaar idhar, ya thoda action kar do idhar. So we've stayed clear of all that.
Nice. And I think that really helps the film in standing apart from a lot of films that have come out in the past few years.
And I appreciate you saying that because it means a lot. For me, that's the reward. You know?
No, genuinely, for sure. Yeah. Another thing that I have always noticed about your work is that you are so comfortable and so much at ease, and you have such great chemistry with male co-actors.
Yeah.
And you have done so many films, you know, so many films with Akshay, so many films with Paresh Rawal, for example.
With Abhishek, you know, I've done stuff. Yeah, I'm always...
And with Shah Rukh, you know, of course, everyone talks about your chemistry in Pathan and how, I mean, you know, people wrote fanfics about it. I don't know if you know, but...
I know that there's a scene where I walk really close to Shah Rukh in Pathan and I look at him and I say, "To kya karoge?" You know, I'm threatening him.
Yeah.
And some meme I saw, "Bhige hoot tere," and I'm looking at it and it looked like true romance, you know, between Shah Rukh and me.
Yeah.
Because I started looking at Shah Rukh's lips in that scene and I'm like, wow, what beautiful lips this man. You know?
Really? Was it really something that you thinking that time?
Yeah, because the song that Bhige hoot came and I was like, man, these meme guys have some imagination. It looked like a romantic scene between two of us out of nowhere.
But no, for real, I think most of the people had this takeaway from Pathan that the both of you had such great chemistry that it could have easily been like, like a story between these two people.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. I think credit to Shah Rukh. He made me feel very comfortable. And I still remember the first day I walked onto set. There is that sense of intimidation and it was an action scene. That if I walk onto set, it means I'm going to start thrashing people.
Right.
So the first thing I went and told Shah Rukh was, I'm very scared that you shouldn't get hurt, I shouldn't get hurt, and we should be very careful with each other. And he was like, this is like a Great Dane talking, like he's so careful about, and touch wood, I've never hurt a co-star and no one's ever got hurt in any action sequence, and Shah Rukh and I took great care of each other, and I think the camaraderie showed, even though we were at loggerheads, like Abhishek and me in Dhoom, Shah Rukh and me, Sanjay Dutt and me in Zinda. The camaraderie was so beautiful that the enmity on screen also comes across so beautifully.
Yeah.
It gets amplified.
Yeah. John, if you just had to speak about, a few films that you really like, of course you spoke about Schindler's List, but, if just you had to tell people or talk to people about a few films that you feel everyone should watch, or films that have personally impacted you a lot, maybe.
I'm in the space of have people heard about Roman Polanski, The Pianist,
Of course, yes.
I like very intense films, so that are bordering on dark. So, I really wouldn't go then, but I also like comedies. Can I mention one comedy that I really love, and
yes.
It's very slapstick and super. I love Zoolander.
Yeah.
I love
It's an
Zoolander.
amazing film.
Yeah. So I think good films are not necessarily about just very intense films and knowledgeable films. It's also about having fun. So I like Dumb and Dumber, I like Zoolander, I like those films as well. And I'm a big fan of slapstick comedy. So I just think that it's a good mix of having all kinds of films. I know you guys are more in the space of intense
No,
films.
nothing like that, यार. मतलब Dumb and Dumber और Zoolander अगर films ना होती तो फिर I'm such
Garam
a big,
Masala.
वही तो मैं कह रहा हूँ. I watch Garam Masala every year religiously,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, but Garam Masala has become this big cult film on Instagram now. And like,
I hope we can surprise you with something soon.
Really?
Maybe, I don't
fingers
know. Maybe.
crossed. You heard it here first.
Yeah, I hope we can surprise you with something, because we are very excited about doing something different.
It's such a hilarious film.
Yeah.
Everyone in that film is on their A game.
Unbelievable.
Even Paresh sir's character is incredible. वैसा character नहीं बना अभी तक Bollywood में.
Mind blowing. He just cared about making food and throwing it. Making food is superb. I miss that film. I miss that time.
Yeah.
It was a great time we had.
Yeah. What does acting mean to you in terms of, is acting a cathartic exercise for you?
So when I started off, Bhatt Saab was my mentor in a lot. Mahesh Bhatt.
Of course.
And Jism was a film where I didn't need glycerin. I broke down crying in my scenes, and I felt the emotion. There was catharsis. I was going through moments, and I kept being very subtle in my performances. And if you read about what acting is, it's about the subtleties and the realism. At least if you look at the Google meaning or whatever, or if you read up on what Daniel Day-Lewis says, who I think is the greatest actor of all time, for example, it's about the subtleties, but also getting into that character. So I've always tried my best. I started off very raw, but I kept keeping my performances very subtle. And I came in at a point of time where the loudness in performance was considered good acting. And I'm not saying that was right or wrong, but I didn't understand that. I didn't understand someone doing this, or I just didn't get it unless you're doing a comedy. And I didn't understand that a hero has to turn like this, and I just didn't understand those movements. They were not part of my DNA and my body, and my subtleties were considered as underacting. That क्या कर रहे हो यार? आप बहुत ही subtle हो यार. This is Hindi films, थोड़ा दिखाओ आप. But I couldn't, and I kind of faced a lot of criticism for it. But when the audience started changing its tastes, and when they looked back at my films like Zinda, or Taxi 911, or Jism, or No Smoking, they said, no man, these are good performances. So it is a perception of the audience that changed rather than my performances. As a performer, even today, I try and improve with every film. I try my best to improve with every film. Am I successful all the time? No, I'm not. But I try. I really work hard on every nuance, every movement, even the body language. Like in the Diplomat, my walk, I worked on my gait, on the way I walked. I didn't want to go wrong on that. I didn't want to walk like a hero. So everything was important. When I'm sitting in the car, when bullets are being fired, I couldn't be sitting and looking at those bullets like I'm going to crunch those bullets. So every day is a learning experience, Harshit. And I have no harm in learning every day. And I learn from everybody around me. I'm a big fan of, say, Sharib Hashmi. He's so effortless. Just being with him on set, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from my co-actors. They're younger than me, they're newer than me. Vidhatri, she plays Sirat in the film. I learned a lot from her because there were so many nuances in the way she performed. So you learn from each. I learned from Sadia, looking at her.
Yeah,
you learn what to do. You learn what not to do also. So you learn both sides of things. So it's a great experience for me. So that's what an actor is about. How you can pick up energies. And for actors, at least for me, if I have negative energy around me in real time, I fall sick. Because you're absorbing all the time. So you need positivity around you all the time. And if you're not finding positivity, then you make and you create positivity around you. So that's how I kind of, like if you ask any of my co-actors in all my films, The Diplomat, never did they feel on any day that they felt like they were performing on set. We had fun. Every day we had a lot of fun. But the performances show.
One thing that I really liked about The Diplomat, क्योंकि जब जो आप चीज़ बोल रहे थे about your character, about the fact that you changed your gait and all that, at the same time also really like that जब भी ताहिर के साथ आपकी arguments वगैरह हो रही थी, generally you would expect that the hero will, मतलब वो उल्टा सुनाएगा कि अबे चुप हो जाइए वो types, but you were really restrained in terms of your character's responses were really restrained.
Correct.
और आप जवाब क्या दे रहे थे कि वो डर रही है तेरी वजह से,
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a refreshing kind of thing for a character to do, especially the hero.
Yeah. And also, ये plot Pakistani है लेकिन सरजमी हिंदुस्तान की है. If I had to play it out like an actor and if my director had to direct me, where this is a claptrap line, I would say, bas, plot Pakistani hai, sarzami Hindustan ki hai. And pause. But we didn't do that. We said, plus plot Pakistani hai, sarzami Hindustani. Kya baat hai Tahir? Ek chai pe baith ke baat kar. You immediately move. You don't want to lend heroism to a scene where you have to be a diplomat in the moment.
Yeah.
Your point is not arguing with him. Your point is talking to Tahir, not Bashir.
Yeah.
You're telling him that to calm him down, but your job is to tell Tahir, listen, let's sit over a cup of tea and discuss. So those thought processes were continuously playing in my head. And if they were not, my director came and reminded me, John, remember what you're coming in from. So we were continuously rehearsing and learning with each other all the time.
Okay, John, so this has been a lovely conversation. Just on an ending note, I always end with a question that is very different from the rest of the conversation that we've had. Okay, might be slightly heavily loaded, but what does happiness mean to you?
Happiness is a state of mind, and I'm always looking for it. I'm always looking for it. Even when I feel I'm happy, I look for a reason to make me a little unhappy so I can find happiness.
Really?
Yeah, always. Yeah, I am. I'm always brooding and complaining and trying to look for things, but I'm also a practical joker. So I find happiness in that.
So basically, there's joy in also finding happiness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's joy in looking out for it all the time. And when you meet someone who's happy and smiling, man, can I tell you an incident? Like, I'll tell you what happiness was for me. I go for these, I go around laps on a motorcycle in the UK, Brands Hatch. And there's these tracks where I ride super bikes. So I do lap times and I keep grading myself. And most of the times, some of the times people overtake me. They're better than me. So I become unhappy. So there's a guy I overtook and he fell down and I was really happy. So I took him out for lunch. That brought me happiness because I was faster than him. So, you find happiness from small places. Happiness for me is honestly watching animals. They're beautiful. I love animals and watching them brings me a lot of happiness. And let's put it this way. If you put all the animals in the room together and ask them what humans are about, it's going to be a very bad ending and a bad story. So I just love animals.
Okay. On that note, this was John What did I do?
You call me Junior Abraham?
It's John Abraham. But by the way, do you know about the director John Abraham?
Of course.
Have you seen his films?
Yeah, I've seen. He's a very famous Malayalam director,
Yes,
and I'm a
yes.
big fan of his.
Yeah.
But do you know what my father's name is?
Abraham John.
Abraham John.
Yes.
So a lot of times my father goes on a flight and he says, "Son, the air hostesses look disappointed when they saw me." So I was like, okay.
But yes, on that note, this was John Abraham with Harshit Bansal on Humans of Cinema. John, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
me.
Thank you.
This is the signing off.